Welcome back, girls. We are still on chapter 7. We are going to discuss section 2, which is all about Christ's infancy and hidden years. So remember, girls, that the Gospels didn't exist in a fully written form during those early days of those new followers of Jesus. They, of course, did hear gospel stories, and they gathered to celebrate the Eucharist. And we're going to talk about Jesus' early life in this section. It's important for us to remember that the greatest gift from God the Father for all humanity is the incarnation. So that is the concept of Jesus being both human and divine. So the infancy narratives are all about Jesus' birth story. So actually, Jesus' birth story is only contained in 2 Gospels, the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Matthew. And we often call these infancy narratives. So they really explain more of who Jesus is, what his mission was about, all those events that surrounded his birth. And if you think of his birth story, he wasn't born into royalty, by the looks of it, right? He was born in a manger, a stable. There was no room for them at the inn. So it, reminds us that he was born into very lowly circumstances. So there's Mary holding Jesus in the stable, right? So again, Jesus' coming is good news for all, but especially the poor and outcasts, right? He will save them. He's the savior of the world. His message is for all people. And he now fulfills the prediction of those prophets that we talked about. So again, the infancy narratives are all about Jesus as a baby and his message. We start to hear about that even before his ministry, so that's his life work, begins to unfold. In the Gospel of Luke, we also find a description of the Annunciation. So do you girls know what the Annunciation is? Okay, if you don't, look it up. But this is when the angel Gabriel appears to Mary and tells Mary that she is, with child and she's the chosen one. And that's what's known as the Annunciation. We actually just celebrated the Feast of the Annunciation in March. I believe it was March 25th. Okay. So we also learn about Mary and Joseph too, right? Mary, Jesus' mom, and Joseph, his stepmom. And they were very faithful people. And then they also had to escape persecution, right? So another thing to remember is that, we learn about Jesus being born in the stable, but then we really don't hear much about Jesus as a young boy. But we do know that during Jesus' childhood, Mary, Jesus, and Joseph returned from Egypt to live in Nazareth, right? Jesus the Nazarene. We don't know much about his younger years. You don't hear much about Jesus as a toddler or a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old even. The next time we really hear about a specific story about Jesus is when he's a young boy. And that's the story of Jesus in the temple. So I encourage you to Google that story. If you just Google Jesus in the temple, it's also in your textbook. So read about that story. And the underlying message is that Jesus continued love and obedience to Mary and Joseph. And he's also showing us at a very young age how to live with respect and dignity. And that's it for section 2.